What did your mom do that became the stuff of legend? When I was in 6th grade, my school had this weird rule about no jewelry at all, even if it wasn't flashy or expensive. My mom, Dana, had given me this tiny gold ring that belonged to my grandfather who died the year before. It wasn't much to look at, just this plain band with a college crest carved into it, but wearing it made me feel like Grandpa was still with me somehow. One Tuesday during recess, Mrs. Wilson spotted the ring on my finger and marched straight over. She grabbed my hand and yanked the ring off without even asking. Said it was distracting and against school policy. I tried explaining it was from my grandpa, but she just shook her head and told me it would be kept in the office for safekeeping until my mom could pick it up. I went home crying that day. When I told my mom what happened, her face went completely still. She didn't yell or anything, just sat there for a minute processing everything. Then she said she'd handle it in the morning. Dana showed up at school the next day wearing jeans and sunglasses, looking calm, but something about her energy felt different. She asked the front desk lady to see the ring. The woman said it had already been moved to the principal's office for security. But when my mom got to Mr. Fletcher's office, suddenly the story changed. Now they claimed the ring couldn't be located anywhere. Mr. Fletcher was this stiff guy with a goatee and one of those motivational posters about discipline on his wall. He promised to investigate, but basically brushed my mom off like she was making a big deal over nothing. Said these things happen and they'd keep looking. 2 whole weeks went by. My mom called the school, visited twice, got the runaround every single time. They kept saying they were still searching but had no updates. Then she showed up one Friday afternoon carrying a box of homemade cookies and wearing a camera around her neck like some tourist. She handed the front desk a permission slip she'd typed up about shadowing her son for a family photography project. The secretary barely glanced at it and waved her through. But my mom didn't come to my classroom. Instead, she wandered around claiming she was looking for the bathroom. That's when she ended up in the staff lounge where a bunch of teachers were eating lunch. And there, sitting at the corner table grading papers, was Mrs. Fletcher, the principal's wife, who sometimes filled in as a substitute teacher. On her finger was my ring, my grandfather's ring, clear as day. My mom didn't make a scene or start yelling. She just casually asked Mrs. Fletcher about the pretty ring she was wearing while snapping what looked like a random photo of the room. Mrs. Fletcher smiled and said it was a family heirloom from her husband's side. My mom thanked her for the information and left without another word. She drove straight to the school board office and requested an emergency meeting, showed them the photo of Mrs. Fletcher wearing the ring along with all her documentation about reporting it missing, explained how she'd been given the runaround for 2 weeks, while the principal's wife was literally wearing stolen jewelry from a student. Monday morning, Mr. 2 Weeks, Fletcher was suddenly out on leave pending investigation. Wednesday, every family in the district got a letter apologizing for a recent misunderstanding involving student property and promising policy changes. That same week, my ring appeared in an envelope addressed to my mom with a note about how it had been found in the lost and found. No explanation, no apology, just the ring back like nothing happened. Mr. Fletcher never came back. From the quiet intensity when she first heard what happened, to the calm way she infiltrated the school with cookies, a fake permission slip, and a camera, that's movie-level planning, the fact that she caught the principal's wife wearing the stolen ring, then gathered evidence and handled it with so much precision it's honestly admirable. No screaming, no empty threats, just results. Not only did she get your grandfather's ring back, she exposed corruption in the school administration without even breaking a sweat. That move shook the system so hard the principal vanished like a deleted email. That's not just stuff of legend, that's spy thriller with a heart material. You ever thought of turning this into a script or short film? Because this would kill on YouTube or even as a short drama series episode. Let me know if you'd like help scripting or formatting it for video. I'd love to help bring this story to life. Story 2. So, I guess I should start with some background. I lost my welding job about 5 months ago when the company downsized. Best job I ever had, honestly. Worked there for 7 years, made decent money, had my own apartment. Everything was good until it wasn't. When I got laid off, I couldn't find anything that paid nearly as well, and after 2 months of searching, I had to give up my apartment. My parents said I could stay in their finished basement until I got back on my feet. My mom and I agreed I'd pay $400 a month, all I could afford with my crappy new job at the hardware store. Not ideal, but it was supposed to be temporary. Fast forward to yesterday, I finally landed a decent welding gig after sending out like 100 applications. Was supposed to start next Monday. Things were looking up. I even told my mom about it over breakfast before heading to what was going to be my last day at the hardware store. I pulled into our neighborhood around 6 p.m. Tired AF, but feeling good about finally getting my life back on track. As I turned onto our street, I noticed a small crowd on our front lawn. Weird. Then I saw all these black garbage bags scattered across the grass, like a lot of them. My brain didn't process what was happening at first. I parked across the street, confused, and that's when I saw my mom standing there with her phone out recording. My sister Amanda, 26, was next to her, also holding up her phone. My brother Kevin, 31, was pacing around looking all amped up. Dad was standing on the porch with his arms crossed. I got out of my car and walked over. That's when I realized all those bags were my stuff. Everything I owned just thrown out on the lawn like trash. Some bags had broken open, and my clothes were spilling out onto the wet grass. My gaming monitor was leaning against a tree without any protection. Mom saw me and literally started narrating to her phone, saying I was 29 years old, living in her basement like a parasite, and it was time for me to get out now. She was putting on this weird performance voice like she was making some kind of intervention video. My brother Kevin actually kicked one of my bags when he saw me and was like, "Finally, the family loser is gone. My sister was worse. She was literally live streaming to her followers. She has this makeup channel thing with like 20K followers saying, 'Y'all are watching my loser brother get what he deserves.' He owes Mom $8,000 in back rent. $8,000. We agreed on $400 a month. I've been there 5 months. That's $2,000 max, and I've paid at least $1,800 of it. I was literally only behind by $200 because I was waiting for my last paycheck. I tried to ask what was happening, but my dad stormed down from the porch and threw my car keys at my face. They had their own copy for emergencies. They hit me right in the cheek. He said I wasn't their son anymore. That real men don't mooch off their parents at my age. Then he told me if I wasn't gone in 30 minutes, he'd call the cops and say I was trespassing. The crazy thing is, our neighbors were out on their porches watching this whole thing. Some were recording on their phones. Mrs. Lanson from next door actually shouted that it was about time. They were tired of seeing my beat-up car lower their property values. It's a 2009 Civic that runs perfectly fine. Just has some scratches and a dent in the passenger door from when someone hit me in a parking lot last year. I was in shock, like completely blindsided. Last night, everything seemed normal. We even watched a basketball game together. This morning, Mom made me breakfast, and now this. Later, I found out what happened. My sister went through my stuff while I was at work, WTF, and found a letter from my new job with the salary offer. She showed it to my mom, who freaked out because the job pays pretty well. Mom had been telling everyone I was unemployed and mooching off them when actually I'd been working this whole time at the hardware store. Apparently, she'd been complaining to the whole family that I was this lazy bum taking advantage of them. When Amanda showed her I'd be making good money starting next week, instead of being happy for me, Mom panicked because her whole victim narrative would fall apart. So, she decided to kick me out before I started the new job so she could still play the martyr. Kevin has always been jealous because our grandfather took an interest in teaching me welding when I was younger, but never connected with him the same way. And my sister has always done whatever Mom tells her to. I was so angry I could barely see straight, but I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me lose it. I just smiled, started loading my stuff into my car, and told them to enjoy their victory party because they'd all be hearing from me very soon. The crazy thing, they have no idea about the trust my grandfather set up. Before he died 3 years ago, he put me in his will as a part owner of several properties, including 40% of my parents' house. I never said anything because I didn't want to cause family drama. Grandpa knew how they treated me and set it up as protection, but I never thought I'd need to use it. I drove to my friend Mike's place. He let me crash on his couch and helped me unload my car. I called my grandfather's attorney this morning. The trust is still valid, and I have legal ownership stake in their house. They can't actually throw me out without my consent. 6 months of dealing with their constant put-downs. Mom's passive-aggressive comments. Kevin accidentally breaking my stuff, my sister going through my things. I'm done being the family punching bag. They want me gone so bad. Fine. But they're about to find out what happens when you throw the part owner of your house out on the street. I've got the attorney drawing up papers now, just waiting for the right moment to drop the bomb on them. Update coming soon, update 1. Hey everyone. So, the responses to my last post were kind of overwhelming. Thanks for all the support. A lot's happened in the past week since I was thrown out like trash, and I wanted to update you guys. First off, Mike's couch isn't exactly the Ritz, LOL. His apartment is tiny AF and he has 2 roommates who weren't exactly thrilled about me crashing here. They've been cool about it though, but I can tell I'm wearing out my welcome fast. Been sleeping with my phone and wallet under the pillow since one of the roommates gives me weird vibes. The morning after everything went down, I called my grandfather's attorney, Mr. Harlow. Getting an appointment wasn't easy since he's semi-retired now, but when I mentioned my name and my grandfather, his secretary squeezed me in for later that afternoon. Mr. Harlow's office is in this old building downtown. Walking in there felt IDK like Grandpa was still looking out for me somehow. Mr. Harlow remembered me right away. Said, I have my grandpa's eyes. We talked for almost 2 hours. So, here's the deal. The trust is 100% legit. My grandfather set it up 3 years ago, right before he died. I own 40% of my parents' house, 50% of this vacation cabin they have up at Lake Merritt, that they never let me use BTW. And get this, 35% of the building where my dad runs his home renovation business. My grandfather was a commercial real estate developer, and these were some of his properties. Mr. Harlow showed me all the paperwork. My family got copies of everything when Grandpa died, but I guess they either didn't read the fine print or thought I'd never find out. He said my grandfather structured it this way because he was worried about how my family treated me. Turns out Grandpa saw through their BS years ago. While all this was happening, my phone was blowing up. Mom called like 20 times that first day. I let it go to voicemail every time. Her messages went from angry, "Where are you? You need to come and get the rest of your junk," to fake concerned, "We're worried about you," to threatening, "If you don't respond, we're donating all your stuff." I texted back once just saying I was safe and would handle my remaining belongings soon. She immediately called 3 times in a row. I didn't pick up. Kevin texted saying Mom was overreacting and that it wasn't that serious and maybe we could talk this out like adults. The same dude who literally kicked my stuff and called me a loser wants to talk like adults now. Laugh my ass off, my sister's texts were the worst. First she was like, "Hey, I hope you're not mad about the stream. It was just for content." Then she had the nerve to ask if she could use my dramatic exit in her next video. I blocked her number after that. Dad never contacted me directly until day 3 when he texted saying I needed to come sign some papers. Didn't say what papers, didn't apologize, just expected me to show up like a good little doormat. I ignored him too. With Mr. Harlow's help, I started the process of formally claiming my ownership rights. We sent a certified letter to my parents notifying them that I was exercising my rights as part owner of the properties. Nothing too aggressive yet, just making it official that I know what I own and I'm not backing down. The next day, I started my new job. The pay is good, like actually good. Not get rich good, but afford my own place and build savings good. My supervisor, Dave, seems decent, and the work is something I'm actually qualified for. On Wednesday, something weird happened. I was on lunch break when Kevin showed up at my new workplace. I have no idea how he found out where I was working. He was all fake friendly at first, asking how I was doing, saying the family was worried. I asked how he found me, and he got all defensive, saying Mom and Dad were just concerned and wanted to make sure I was okay. Then he switched to saying I should come home and we could figure things out. I told him I wasn't interested in their fake concern now that they'd publicly humiliated me. He got mad and said I was being dramatic and selfish. Then he dropped the real reason he was there. Apparently, my mom had gone through more of my stuff and found some papers about a piece of land Grandpa left me. Kevin said it was worthless land, and Mom wanted me to sign it over to the family since I didn't need it. I almost laughed in his face. They still have no idea what Grandpa actually left me. I told Kevin I wasn't signing anything and he needed to leave. He got in my face saying I'd regret making this difficult, and that family should stick together. I told him we weren't family anymore. His words, not mine. He shoved me hard before storming off. My coworkers saw the whole thing, which was embarrassing, but at least there were witnesses. Yesterday, Mr. Harlow called with news. Turns out my family has been collecting rent from the vacation property and Dad's business building. Rent that I'm legally entitled to a percentage of. They never disclosed this income to me. We're talking about thousands of dollars over the past 3 years that should have been mine. Mr. Harlow sent another letter yesterday afternoon, this one detailing the financial accounting we're requesting and my rights to back payment of rental income. He said we should expect a response pretty quickly. He wasn't wrong. Around midnight last night, my phone exploded with notifications. Mom sent 11 texts in a row, all caps, demanding I call her immediately. Kevin texted asking where I was, saying Mom was freaking out. Amanda sent a long message saying she deleted the live stream, too late, sis, and that we needed to talk. Even Dad, who hasn't said more than 10 words to me in months, sent a message saying to call urgently. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I forwarded all the messages to Mr. Harlow. He says, "This is just the beginning. We haven't even gotten to the part where I can potentially force the sale of properties if they don't cooperate. I found an apartment today. It's small, and the neighborhood isn't great, but it's mine. I'm signing the lease tomorrow and moving in this weekend. First month's rent and security deposit coming out of my first paycheck. It's funny. A week ago, I was the family loser who couldn't support himself. Now I'm the family member they desperately need to talk to. But I'm done talking. From now on, they can talk to Mr. Harlow. More updates coming soon. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my last update. Things have gone from intense to absolutely insane. I don't even know where to start. So, I moved into my new apartment. Like I mentioned, nothing fancy, just a 1-bedroom with barely functioning AC and neighbors who apparently think 3 a.m. is the perfect time to rearrange furniture. But it's mine, and nobody can throw my stuff on the lawn. So, there's that. The first real bombshell dropped when Mr. Harlow sent the detailed property ownership breakdown to my family. Turns out my grandfather was way more specific in the trust than even I realized. Not only do I own percentages of the properties, but the trust contains specific protections against them trying to sell or refinance without my consent. My parents have been taking out equity loans against both properties for years. Dad's business isn't doing nearly as well as they pretend, and they've been using the properties as their personal piggy bank. According to the trust, they needed my signature for any loans after my grandfather died. They never got it. That makes those loans potentially invalid. The day after they got the full trust details, my Aunt Kathy, Mom's sister, showed up at my apartment. I have no idea how she found my address. I'm guessing they followed me from work. She was all fake sweet, bringing me homemade cookies like we were best friends. We've spoken maybe 10 times in the last 5 years. Kathy said she was just checking on me because the family was concerned. Then she spent 20 minutes telling me how my mom was having anxiety attacks and my dad's blood pressure was through the roof because of my vindictive behavior. I asked her if they had anxiety when they threw my belongings on the lawn and filmed it. She didn't have an answer for that. Before leaving, she dropped the real reason for her visit. They wanted me to just talk with them and work something out as a family. I told her they could call Mr. 7 for Mr. Harlow. She left the cookies. I threw them away, not taking any chances after what they did. 2 days later, my sister Amanda DM'd me on Instagram. She deleted all her posts about me, shocking, and wanted to reconnect. She said she never meant for the live stream to hurt me and was just trying to get content for her followers. Then she had the nerve to ask if I would consider doing a reconciliation video with her, because family drama videos perform really well. I blocked her. The next day, my phone rang. Unknown number. It was my dad's business partner, Jim. I've always liked Jim, so I took the call. He said my dad asked him to reach out because I wasn't responding to the family. Jim seemed genuinely confused about the whole situation. Apparently, my dad told him I was trying to steal the business building out of nowhere. I explained what actually happened. Jim was quiet for a long time, then said he had no idea about any of it. Not about me being thrown out, not about the trust, nothing. He said my dad had told everyone I'd moved out voluntarily to find myself or some BS. Later that day, I got an email from Mr. Harlow. He'd completed the financial analysis of the rental income I should have received from the properties. Over 3 years, they've collected over $50,000 that I was legally entitled to a percentage of $50,000. While I was struggling to pay rent, working at a hardware store, being called a mooch and a loser, Mr. Harlow filed formal paperwork demanding financial records and back payment. He also notified the banks about the potentially invalid loans. That's when the real harassment began. Kevin showed up at my work again. This time he wasn't alone. He brought 2 of his friends. They tried to corner me in the parking lot. Kevin was saying I needed to drop this lawsuit crap. There's no lawsuit yet. And that I was destroying the family. His friends stood there trying to look intimidating. I told Kevin that if they didn't leave immediately, I'd call the police and file for a restraining order. They left, but Kevin shouted that this wasn't over. I installed a security camera outside my apartment door that night. The next morning, I had 17 missed calls from my mother. She left voicemails alternating between crying and yelling. In one, she was sobbing about how could I do this to my own family, and the next, she was screaming that I was ungrateful and selfish. Real stable behavior. I didn't respond to any of it, just forwarded everything to Mr. Harlow like he instructed. But yesterday, things reached a whole new level. I was grabbing lunch at this sandwich place near work when my dad walked in. He spotted me and came straight over. For a second, I thought he might actually hit me. Instead, he sat down uninvited and tried to act all calm and reasonable. He said they'd received the financial demands from my lawyer and that I was making a big mistake. Then he said if I didn't drop everything immediately, he would make sure everyone in town knew what kind of son I was. I asked what exactly that meant. He said he had evidence that I'd stolen from the family business years ago when I briefly worked there during college. It's complete BS. I never stole anything. But the threat was clear. Back off or he'd try to ruin my reputation. I just looked at him and said, the evidence better be good because false accusations are defamation, and Mr. Harlow would be very interested in adding that to our case. He slammed his hand on the table and left. On my drive home, my mom called again. This time I picked up. She immediately started crying, saying, Dad didn't mean what he said. They were just stressed about money and couldn't we work this out? Then she switched tactics completely and said they'd always supported me and this is how I repay them by trying to take their house in business. I reminded her that they threw me out. They humiliated me publicly. They called me a parasite and a loser, and now they're facing the consequences of their actions. She said I was breaking her heart and hung up. This morning, Mr. Harlow called with an update. The bank is investigating the loans taken out against the properties. If they determine the loans were obtained fraudulently by not disclosing my ownership and getting my signature, my parents could be in serious financial trouble. He also got a copy of the trust's full terms. Turns out my grandfather included a specific clause that if my parents contested the trust or tried to prevent me from exercising my ownership rights, their percentages would be reduced by 10% each year. They've been fighting this for 3 weeks now. Oh, and remember my sister's 20K followers? Some of them found my Instagram somehow and have been sending me clips of the live stream she claims she deleted. In one clip, she's literally laughing while Mom throws my clothes on the ground saying, "This is what happens when you mess with our family." Mr. Harlow says, "We're meeting on Monday to discuss next steps." He mentioned something about forcing a property sale if they don't cooperate with the financial settlement. For 29 years, I thought I was the family disappointment. Turns out I was just the family ATM they never got to use. Well, now the ATM is closed permanently, and it's time to collect all the fees they've been avoiding. I'll update again after Monday's meeting. This is far from over. Final update. Hey Reddit, it's been about 2 months since my last update. A lot has happened, and I wanted to give you guys the final chapter of this whole mess. So, that Monday meeting with Mr. Harlow I mentioned, it was eye-opening AF. Turns out the situation was even worse than we thought. Not only had my family been taking rental income that partially belonged to me, but my dad had also been using the properties as collateral for business loans without disclosing the trust's existence to the banks. Mr. Harlow laid out 3 options: force the sale of all properties and split proceeds based on ownership percentages, have them buy out my shares at current market value, set up a formal property management agreement where they keep ownership, but have to pay me back rent plus ongoing income. I decided to go with a modified version of option 3. I'm not trying to make them homeless, but I'm also not just going to let them off the hook. The day after our meeting, Mr. Harlow sent over the formal terms. My family had 1 week to agree, or we'd proceed with option 1, forced sale of everything. Guess who showed up at my apartment that night? All of them. Mom, Dad, Kevin, and Amanda. I didn't let them in. Just talked through the door with my security camera recording everything. Mom was crying. Dad was trying to act reasonable. Kevin was sulking, and Amanda kept glancing at her phone like she was itching to record. I told him I wasn't discussing anything without Mr. Harlow present. Dad got mad and said I was hiding behind lawyers instead of handling things like family. That's when I reminded him that he was the one who said I wasn't their son anymore when he threw my car keys at my face. Hard to play the family card after that. They left after like 20 minutes of getting nowhere. The next day, Mr. Harlow called to say they'd contacted their own lawyer. Progress, I guess. That weekend, something weird happened. I ran into my dad's business partner, Jim, at the grocery store. He seemed uncomfortable but stopped to talk. He said the business was in serious trouble because the bank had frozen their credit line after learning about the ownership issues. Then he told me something that explains so much about why my family treated me the way they did. Apparently, my grandfather had originally planned to leave the business building entirely to me, not just 35%. He told my dad this years ago. My dad panicked and spent years convincing my grandfather that I was irresponsible, lazy, and couldn't handle it. The whole Peter is a loser narrative didn't start recently. My dad had been pushing it for over a decade. Jim had always thought it was strange how my dad talked about me versus how I actually was when I worked there during college. He said my dad had been terrified that I'd somehow find out about the trust and take everything. 2 days later, I got a text from Kevin asking to meet alone. I agreed, but chose a busy coffee shop and brought a buddy to sit at a nearby table just in case. Kevin showed up looking like he hadn't slept in days. He admitted he'd always been jealous because Grandpa clearly favored me while I was learning useful skills with Grandpa. Dad was telling Kevin that I was the family disappointment. Kevin actually apologized for kicking my stuff and said he'd been trying to get Dad's approval his whole life. I told him I appreciated the honesty, but it didn't excuse what he did. He nodded and said he understood. Before leaving, he mentioned that Mom and Dad were fighting constantly now, with Dad blaming Mom for provoking me by throwing me out. The next day, Mr. Harlow called. My family's lawyer had reached out with a counteroffer. They wanted to keep the house, but were willing to sign over the vacation property and business building percentage completely to me if I dropped the back rent demands. Nice try, but no. Mr. Harlow and I rejected it and restated our terms. 3 days before our deadline, I got an email from Amanda. She'd lost almost 5,000 followers after some of them found out what really happened. Apparently, one of her followers had recognized me from high school, remembered I was actually a hard worker, and called her out in the comments. Others had started digging and found old posts where she contradicted her parasite brother story. Her sponsors were backing out, and she blamed me for ruining her brand. I didn't even bother responding. The day before the deadline, their lawyer contacted Mr. Harlow accepting our terms with minor modifications. The key points: I would maintain my ownership percentages in all properties. They would pay me all back rent owed, about $20,000 in monthly installments. A formal property management company would be hired to handle all rental income going forward. They would make a written acknowledgement that they had misrepresented the financial situation. They would issue a formal apology for the public humiliation. I agreed to the payment plan, but added one condition. They had to explain the truth to the extended family and neighbors who witnessed my humiliation. The day they signed the agreement, my mom texted asking if we could put this behind us and be a family again. I didn't respond. A week later, I got a check for the first payment. It came with a handwritten note from my dad saying he was sorry and he hoped we could talk sometime. Too little, too late. I found out from a cousin that my parents had a family meeting where they had to explain what had really happened. Apparently, many relatives were shocked to learn about the trust and how they treated me. Some hadn't even known I was thrown out. My brother Kevin texts occasionally. I respond sometimes. He's trying to start his own business and asks for advice. I gave him some basic suggestions, but kept it brief. Amanda's still mad at me. She had to take down all her videos mentioning me and lost a sponsorship deal. She sent a fake public apology that Mr. Probel, Harlow made her rewrite 3 times before it was acceptable. As for me, I'm doing pretty good. The money from the property income meant I could move to a better apartment. I've been at my job for almost 3 months now and just got a small raise. I'm saving up to eventually buy my own place. Sometimes I wonder if my grandfather knew exactly how this would all play out. The trust was structured so specifically to protect me, almost like he anticipated they might try to push me out someday. Last week, I found an old voicemail from him on a backup drive. It was from right before he died. He said he was proud of me and that he'd set up something to make sure I'd always be okay. Said I might not understand it now, but someday I would. Guess that day came sooner than either of us expected. People ask if I regret what I did, if I think the revenge was too harsh. Honestly, no. They humiliated me publicly, called me a parasite and a loser, and threw me out on the street while filming it for entertainment. They weren't sorry until they realized it would cost them financially. I don't hate them anymore. I just don't need them. And that feels better than any revenge could. Will I eventually talk to them again? Maybe. But it'll be on my terms as an equal, not as the family punching bag, and they'll never have financial power over me again. That's the thing about throwing someone away. Sometimes you don't realize what you're losing until it's gone. Thanks for reading my updates through all this. Your support honestly helped me stay strong when I was tempted to give in. Now I'm rebuilding my life one day at a